Data source credibility. After viewing this tutorial, students will be able to identify different ways to evaluate data, datasets, and statistics. You are likely already familiar with source credibility and the importance of evaluating sources in research. The same holds true when working with data. There are several factors to consider when evaluating data. Who collected the data? What information do you have about the organization or individual researcher collecting the data, and what other types of information do they publish? Why did they gather this data, and what is their purpose in publishing it? How was the data collected? How big is the sample size, and is all of the relevant information included? Another good thing to try, and this applies to doing any type of source evaluation, is what we call lateral searching, which is checking other sources to see if you can verify this data elsewhere. When we talk about bias, what we're really talking about are assumptions. What assumptions are being made by the group collecting and publishing this data? Is there information they didn't consider relevant that they omitted that skewed the results? What assumptions are we making as researchers? For example, what assumptions are we making when we see statistics broken down by gender? How is the particular agency or office collecting and distributing the data defining gender? Many of these offices will offer a glossary of terms to help researchers interpret data, but gender-based data collecting norms are still evolving. In 2019, the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe published a review focused on measuring gender identity, with suggestions for data collection that might be applied across countries. However, it is important to always check to see how the particular agency collecting data is defining their terms. What are the assumptions around the term unmarried? It's useful to remember to ask ourselves whether or not the data point was gathered before or after same-sex marriage was found to be a constitutional right. The Census Bureau actually has some information about how the office has collected information on same-sex couple households over time. What about assumptions around age-related data or lack thereof? Research is currently being done about the underrepresentation of elderly patients in clinical trials, and on the historic lack of reporting and demographic data on older adults because of their habitation in long-term care facilities. This all means that it is important to acknowledge the limitations of the data you find, and to not make assumptions about what data is telling you. You will need to evaluate the data you find not only for credibility, but for suitability to your own research. This concludes our introduction to data source credibility. If you would like additional information or have questions, please go to library.georgetown.edu/askus or email us at reference@georgetown.edu.